Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another episode of Into the Fray, hovering over you like a black triangle in a deserted field. Visit the mothership at intothefrayradio.com. There you can find all the episodes, the blog posts, ITF gear, and sign up for the free guest newsletter. The weekly show is, of course, always free and available in all podcatchers, but if you'd like to support the show, and why wouldn't you, go to the website and click Become an Insider, which in turn gets you extra content each and every month. And by the way, if you would be so kind as to leave a rating and review in your listening platform of choice, Cosmic Karma shall be yours. Be part of the discussion by joining the interactive ITF Facebook group. Follow on Twitter at ITF_radio and Instagram. If you have an experience that you'd like to share, email Shannon at intothefrayradio.com. Thanks so much for listening. Now, if you would be so kind, buckle up your safety belts. Put that tray table in the upright position. Liftoff is upon us.
Welcome on. Finally, it's long overdue.
Yeah, thank you.
But you know, there's a 2-book minimum to come on into the fray. So I was just waiting for you. So finally, here we are, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, it's prerequisite, man. You got to write at least 2 books. So
okay, I have Bigfoot staring me in the face. It's cute.
yeah. I had to settle the Sasquattle in behind the logo somewhere, right? So.
Oh, it's cool.
So this,
he's kind of side-eyeing me,
yeah,
you're not saying stupid.
He's got really good stank eye. That's why I have him up on my Skype. I was like, he gives better side eye than I do, so I'm just gonna put the Sasquattle up there. I should actually have him as all of my profile pictures. I think that would be a lot more fitting. All right, so on this edition of Into the Fray, I have on with me Mike Damante. And, of course, he is the author of 2 books now, which is why he is now on the show. I'm just kidding. The first one was Punk Rock and UFOs, Cryptozoology meets Anarchy. And just yesterday, Tuesday, his new book came out, Punk Rock and UFOs, True Believer. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Like I said, thank you again for having me. I've been waiting to be on for a while. I'm a big fan of what you do and what you cover. I like how it's kind of like it's a really broad spectrum through all kind of areas of cryptozoology and the paranormal. I love how you cover everything. Thanks for having me on finally.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I'm just being an asshole. You know that. It was way long overdue to have you on. So thank you so much. I popped into your book signing and reading in the answer question segment over at River Oaks yesterday. And I have to say, what a bastard little cricket that was. He was trying to steal your thunder.
The whole time, we couldn't tell if it was like real or like something.
Right.
Like it's a very small store too.
Uh-huh.
So even with a lot of people in there, like afterwards too, when people were just like walking around talking and mingling, you could still hear it.
Really? He was so loud. Because at first I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool, like a sound effect. Because you remember how on Sasquatch in the old days, he used to have the cricket and the crickets in the background? Yeah. I'm like, is Mike going for that kind of an ambiance or what?
Well, it's funny 'cause it almost sounds like it's crickets, like no one's there or like people are asleep.
Right.
It's
I'm like,
funny.
I'm like, I guess if he likes that kind of a thing, that's cool. I was like, maybe just turn it down a smidge. No, it was awesome. It was good to see you in action. It sounds like it was a good back and forth with everybody. There was plenty of people in there.
Yeah, no, it was a good turnout, and I'm hoping to do another one soon in Houston and maybe someday in Austin, Texas.
Nice. I've never been to Austin. I hear nothing but good things about it. Just the food and the vibe and the music and everything is cool there.
Oh yeah, Austin's one of probably the best cities you can live. It just the thing that sucks right now is everyone wants to live there, so it's really expensive.
Yeah.
But I have some family there, and I'm going there this weekend. There's just so much stuff to do for free, like nature, like involved like with nature and stuff that you don't have in other big quote unquote big cities in Texas. So Austin's cool. It's got a California vibe, but it still feels like Texas. So it's like the best of both worlds. It's awesome. And they also have the Museum of the Weird on 6th Street, which is a cool place.
That's where that is. I've heard of that. I didn't know it was in Austin.
Yeah, it's on 6th Street, which is kind of like the big drag of bars and restaurants, and right in the middle there, the Museum of the Weird, which now houses, the frozen. Oh, I forgot the name of it. I just wrote about this too. I can't remember the exact name, but it's a frozen what they believe is a Bigfoot that you can see while you're on tour there. It was the Minnesota something man. Iceman.
Oh, the Iceman, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's where that thingamabobber is, whatever that might be. I did not know that.
Yeah, and I mean they explain to you how it got there, and it's a really cool museum. They have like a bunch of like horror movie props up too, and it's fun. It's really kitsch, but it's also really fun too. We've
got a place like that here in Boulder City. I still need to go out to Tom Devlin's Monster Museum. But like he even built some of the props for some of the movies that we all love. So I have to go out there and meet him. I guess he's always like personally there. It's his place and he loves it. So that's really cool. And we are not sponsored by any of these museums, everybody. We're just throwing it out there. Might be somewhere cool to go.
Or the City of Austin's Commerce.
Yes. Right. Yeah, we are not paid by the City of Austin to endorse any of these things. Oh no, when I was trying to interrupt you very rudely, I was just asking, are you from Texas, or have you always been in Houston?
Originally I'm from New York. I grew up in Staten Island, which sucks. And then we lived in Pennsylvania for about half a year or close to a year, and then we came down to Houston.
Yeah, PA's got some really bummer weather like Ohio did. I know, so yes. Maybe that's why you guys were only there for a short amount of time, huh? Mm-hmm. No offense to anybody up there. Of course, I do miss it. I miss the woods. I miss going camping. But holy hell, those winters are just something else. Okay, guys, let's talk for a moment about hair loss. Well over half of you, by the age of 35, will notice thinning hair, bald spots, or a receding hairline. You could sit by and watch it slowly get worse, or do something about it now. forhims.com, your one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, and intimacy wellness for men. Don't turn to weird solutions. With Hims, you will have real doctors and medical-grade solutions to treat your hair loss. A great bonus about Hims? No waiting room or awkward doctor visits. Answer a few quick questions and get prescribed. So order now. My listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today, right now, while supplies last. See website for full details. Now, this would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy. Go to forhims.com/fray. That's forhims.com/fray. forhims.com/fray. Well, yeah, let's dive into this. And it's funny because I always do this. I'll go through the book and I have got like 8 or 10 pages of just everything. I'm going, you can't give the whole, cart and pony away. Everybody needs something when they get the book. So I went through and I redid it. I X'd out some stuff so we can leave some for the folks that want to be surprised in something with the book. So there we go.
Well, I like how in-depth you are, because I saw, you sent the photo of you with the highlighter out and you're ready to go, which is really cool how you printed it out and just, got to work taking notes. And
thank you.
Yeah, I think that's really old school, but good way of doing things. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I write. I should be a doctor. I've said that many times. I can barely sometimes read what I write, but it works. It just looks like my brain just exploded onto several sheets of paper. But I don't know. And I've talked to other radio show hosts that don't read the books. Like, they'll just read the what is it called, the media sheet or whatever that's called, media info sheet, and then go from there. And I'm like, I don't like that. I just don't like doing that. I like to read the book and make the notes and highlight and bleed all over the book and make my whatever scribbles I need. So yeah, thank you. All right, so why these books then, Mike? I mean, do you have your own experiences, or are you just into the stuff since you were a kid?
Okay, so everyone has something that kind of sparks their interest in it. So for me, as a kid, my mom used to get me the Time Life books, and they'd have a monthly series of these really cool hardcover books. They had pictures in them. They had like really good stories in them, and I was just drawn to them because every month you get a new book in the series, and it'd be mysterious places or the UFO phenomenon or undiscovered creatures, and it was like a whole book about cryptids and monsters. And for me, like, that just really sparked my imagination. I always had a good imagination. I was always into like comic books and like horror movies and all those things. So this was kind of right up my alley. But not only this was something that was like, it piqued my imagination, but it was also like, wow, there could be truth to some of this stuff, even at a young age. And the whole idea of this being unknown was just really fascinating to me. So I was always interested in this stuff as a kid. I really didn't decide to like really research it or get involved until I saw something myself, which is I saw a very common sighting, which was some color orbs in the sky. And then not shortly after that, I started getting more back into investigating this stuff, and I just started writing about it. And it's one of in my book, there's a chapter about that, and there's a commonality between all of us. So I feature you in the book as well in your experience, and everybody who's really into this stuff and investigating it, they usually have something in their life that almost like triggers them. Something goes off where this experience kind of prompts them to go out there and investigate this stuff and try to get this stuff out to the public and try to get these stories heard. So I think that's really fascinating that all of us have this in common.
Yeah, and it only usually takes one experience if we're lucky to even have that one. At least most of us think we're lucky to, even if at the time it kind of scared the crap out of us. So your colored orbs in the sky, how old were you and what were they doing?
This was probably, trying to think, 8 or 9 years ago. So it wasn't too long ago. And I was driving home from work, and it's in between downtown and the suburbs. I was coming home from work. I was working at the Houston Chronicle at the time, and I would get off late at night. I would work the night shift, so I'd get off about 1 a.m. So I was coming home from work, and I'm in between, the city and kind of the suburbs, where I live, and not like even in an area which is rural or anything. It was basically just kind of like an area of town where there was highways and movie theaters, and basically an intersection amongst major highways. And I saw this green orb in the sky, just kind of hovering there. And then next thing you know, it started moving in, this very erratic way. And then it just basically just shot down and disappeared. And I got home and I updated my Facebook about it, thinking people were going to say, oh, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. But people were commenting that they saw the same thing too. So yeah, even though it's a very common sighting, this is funny that, that was my first sighting. And just three weeks ago, I was in Chicago. And I wrote about this too on my website, punkrockingufos.com. There was a sighting while we were on. So I was there with my girlfriend and her friends, and they took me on something called, it was like the Sunset Boat Tour. You basically go in the Chicago River into the lake. And I was playing on my phone, and they saw something. And I asked other people on the boat just to make sure they weren't like messing with me, And other people on the boat did as well. There was like a professional photographer. He didn't get a photo of it, but he saw it too. And it was a similar thing. There was a color orb in the sky, but in this one, they described it as it broke off into other orbs and then shot off. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So these sightings are super common. It's funny. Great quote. I interviewed Jeffrey Kripal for my book. He's a professor of religious studies. And, one of the things he says is these experiences are as common as water. And it's, if you think about that, I mean, there's so many, like it's, I'm not sure it's as common as water, but you know what I mean? Like they're just, I think the metaphor he was using is, they're more common than people think.
Right. No, and I've said on my show many times that my nickname at work was Shanna Bowl, and that was even before they figured out I did like this podcast about weird stuff, and they're like, oh, that's really fitting. I'm like, yeah, you guys had no idea, and you call me Shanna Bowl anyway, so it's perfect. But yeah, and then, it takes a little while, and then people start to go, well, I was laughing about your podcast, but actually this one time, and then the stories kind of come forth. And yeah, I think it's a lot more common than most want to admit. I think it does scare a lot of people, but what's interesting in your sighting, you said it shot down and not up, right? Like, where the hell did it go?
Yeah, exactly.
But other people saw it too.
Yeah. A few other people commented on my post saying that they saw it as well, just because it was in a very central, like Houston is huge. You have to drive 30 minutes to go anywhere in Houston, but it was at a very centrally located part of the city, which is basically the intersection of like two major highways. So it was a place that was highly visible, I guess, just to see something.
Yeah, it definitely either wanted people to see it or just didn't give a crap if anybody saw it, basically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any guesses as to what mundane thing that could have been, possibly? Or the way it was flying, you just have no idea?
I mean, it's a UFO by definition, just because, we really can identify it, but just it didn't look like a light effect, or obviously it wasn't a firework. It was obviously something that was moving in a controlled way, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't like something like a light. It was moving in a way which was being controlled.
Yeah, that would be probably me trying to fly a drone and then just crashing it right to the ground. I'm like, oh, this is only $3,000. So I started off in chapter 1 with something that I thought was so cool, and I think that you came up with this little phrase, belief perseverance. I thought that was really a cool way to think about things, because we see online and across all social media platforms that it gets so personal and everyone is so stuck in their beliefs that they're not really open to any new ideas, and they don't want to hear what you have to say. And if you say it, boy, you're going to catch some crap for that. So do you think that those two words really hold a lot of us back as far as being researchers goes?
That's a really good question. I didn't come up with that term. That's something I looked up to because I wanted to look at more of the kind of the psychology behind what we choose to believe. My first book, I talked about our process of belief and things we choose to rebel against and things that we choose to believe. So this one, I try to get did some research in terms of psychological kind of theories and terms and stuff. But yeah, no, I think, a lot of that holds people back in general because a lot of people are set in their ways. And when something goes against, what they've been taught their whole life, they're most likely not listen to it. And especially, when we're talking about this subject, about ufology and, even cryptozoology at some point, when it goes against these preconceived notions people have, they're not as acceptable as to buy it. And not everyone is as open-minded, I guess, as some of us are. And I'm not trying to sound like, pretentious or anything, but I think, people like us who investigate this stuff, we're open to possibilities, and I think one of the goals of this book is to try to get people to be open to all these possibilities. And even myself, I've kind of opened up to a lot more stuff that 2 years ago I'd be like, no, there's no way.
And you find that just from kind of being immersed in this in order to write these two books, you've opened up more. Oh,
yeah, for sure. Just from other people I've met and talked to and the stuff I've read and, the possibilities that are out there. It's really hard to discredit stuff. Even though I come from a journalism background, it's still hard to discredit stuff, even though you don't have 100% full proof, because that idea of proof is also varies on people's different views too.
Yeah, and I didn't mention this in the beginning, everybody, but Mike actually teaches journalism and English. So when you write a post or if you're going to tag him in it, make sure you grammar is proper, spelling's on point, because, I'm sure it's painful to read some of the posts online. Even my own sometimes.
I had a typo in my own book yesterday. I almost killed
Oh,
myself.
did you? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine. I remember one time Ryan, I love, our buddy Ryan Sprague.
Yeah.
Love him. I put a hyphen in between the O and the S for UFOs. And he's like, get that out of there. It doesn't belong there. I'm like, oh, okay, whoopsie. I love that guy. I hope he's doing awesome. All right, so let's skip over to some of the media stuff. And this will also tie in with the vitriol online and the arguing and such. But as far as the snicker factor, do you think that's gone down? And I don't want to focus a whole bunch on the whole Pentagon UFO thing, because I think that's been kind of beat to death lately. But with that coming out, maybe that has helped a little bit, or I know they've maybe backtracked. I kind of lost track of exactly what was going on there. But do you think the snicker factor has been toned down at all with the UFO subject?
Yeah, I think slightly, just because of the fact that it's getting a little bit more mainstream exposure, and but I guess by more credible and bigger outlets. I just think even though the snicker factor may be gone, there's still a lot of barriers that stand in the way from it getting the coverage it needs, and just people being interested in it. There's other barriers as well. But as far as like the snicker factor, I think people are more open to it, I think, just because I think everyone knows someone who's seeing something, has an aunt or a neighbor, or or someone has a story where they saw something that's unexplained.
Right.
And I tell people that these people who have these experiences, it's real to them, it's true to them, and a lot of times they aren't lying about what they experience, or it may not be believable to some people, but whatever those people experience, whether it was real or not, feels true and authentic to them.
Yeah, I can see the man's face in my head, and shame on me for not remembering his name. The documentary, I Know What I Saw, that's just the best, phrase for the whole thing, including my sighting, your sighting. You're like, I know what I saw. It wasn't a drone. It wasn't anything I can explain. If it was, I would tell you that, but I can't. Yeah. If you're thinking about saving money this summer, why not start by paying less interest on your credit card balances? Refinance with a credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream. Lightstream is an easy way to save hundreds to thousands of dollars and lower your interest rate. Lightstream believes that people with good credit deserve a great interest rate and no fees. My listeners can save even more with an additional interest rate discount on top of Lightstream's already low rates. But the only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/fray. lightstream.com/fray. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.50% auto pay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com for more information. All right, you bring up also in that same chapter, Media Matters. It's a little sentence here about the merging of paranormal topics, and do they muddy the field in terms of the mainstream acceptance? So what do you think about that? Do we need to be separating this stuff, or is it okay to start going, yeah, the Bigfoot walked out of the UFO, it was totally normal?
Well, yeah, I interviewed you about this as well. You're one of the persons I wanted to get a quote from, just because I think you do a great job of covering all these topics, and I think they don't. I think the reason why I kind of wrote that story, because originally it was a story I wrote for my website, and then I incorporate that in the book as well. I just kind of thought that maybe this is why people are turned off about UFOs, because they think the same people like UFOs like this, and this, but it's all under the same umbrella. Ufology, cryptozoology, it's all about the unexplained. Right. And the more I research, the more I read, there's a lot of parallels between all these different anomalies. And I'm not saying they're connected, but there's definitely something to be said there. Even some of the more kind of far out stuff I read is still really intriguing, and stuff that leans more to the supernatural elements of stuff. And I don't think the idea that the Bigfoot is in alien entity, I don't think that's that, too far out there. Just because the fact that they've been sighted around the same time as UFO sightings is absolutely fascinating. If anything, that shouldn't muddy the water. That should get people to say, maybe there's something here.
Right.
Let's dive deeper into this connection, because I would love to know, potentially what it is,
I think, though, the idea that, and it makes me very sad, and I hope it's not true, that did you see the thing about where a certain group of people, or maybe just one guy, and I read it and I'm like, oh, people believe like that? Holy crap, poor Bigfoot. That the Bigfoot are actually like basically slaves of the aliens, and they're down here mining stuff for them to run the UFOs. I'm like, poor Bigfoot, man. Poor guys.
I mean, I can understand the theories that Bigfoot's an alien species. That would make sense, whether they're spotted with UFOs, and also makes sense about why they're elusive as well. That would make a lot of sense too.
Yeah. That would make more sense as to why there's no bodies and where the bones and we go down the list and everyone's like, oh, it's a hell of a list. It's very confusing at times.
And you also go to the reportings of all the bodies that people apparently had that were seized by the government. Yeah. And seized by corporations. And that also makes you wonder too, it's another connection you could draw to the UFO phenomenon,
Absolutely.
Did these people know potentially about this, hundreds of years ago when the first sightings were reported and people were getting the bodies, supposedly?
Right. I mean, reports of black helicopters and Humvees or men in black in the town cars driving around. You hear it across all these kinds of stories. Well, let's jump to the Hollywood aspect. Do you think that over all of these years, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, all the films that we love so much, E.T., do you think it's like a slow play disclosure of some sort?
See, I've read things that have said that Hollywood producers have, kind of collaborated with, people in the government and experiencers and stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like at this point, it's been going on forever, with the UFOs and, science fiction movies and pop culture. And, it just like, I don't see the point to still doing it. If that was the case, I don't know if I buy into the idea of slow disclosure, through pop culture, and still, I think it's like, okay, y'all been doing this since, the 60s, it's 40, 50 years. What else do you need? Right. And I'm not one of those disclosure guys that screams, we need disclosure, blah, 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 because I kind of talk about that in my book too, that I think it's kind of pointless if people don't care enough about it. But yeah, no, it's hard because a lot of people that, I kind of support and investigate this stuff too, are kind of, buying that and, drinking that Kool-Aid about, we need to do more through pop culture and entertainment. And it's like, we've had that for years, alien movies, invasion movies, like they're not new, cute alien movies. Like we've seen them all before.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for my pet xenomorph to get here, but he's not here yet. I'm really sad. I'm pretty sure I could tame him. I mean, I can handle birds, so why couldn't I handle a xenomorph? I mean, what's your favorite alien-themed movie of all the ones you've seen over your whole life?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to go to, even though, I mean, it's based on a true story, it's not necessarily a fiction movie, but Fire in the Sky. Mm-hmm. Yes. I remember one year, when I was living in New York, I forgot how old I was a kid, and my parents asked me, what do you want to do for your birthday? And I said, I want to go see Fire in the Sky. So they took,
That's awesome.
They took me and my friends to the movies to see that. And it's weird because that was before I think I started reading those books even. I don't know what prompted me to want to see that movie. But yeah, so I was like, yeah, Fire in the Sky. So yeah,
somehow in your subconscious, you knew like, this is the most badass alien movie that I will ever see. We need to go right now.
Well, see, now you're making me wonder. What made me want to see that?
I mean, if you hadn't heard of it, I was like, oh wow. I mean, that's a hell of a thing to be like.
Go to hypnosis now?
Pretty much, or maybe you shouldn't do hypnosis. Really wonky shit comes out when people go under hypnosis. Yeah. I mean, I think even for anybody that's not into the paranormal, they don't want to go under hypnosis. Pretty scary what's in our noggins. I mean, as far as Fire in the Sky specifically, I think that to be able to go to Snowflake. And not that I'm some sort of a biologist and know flora and fauna and could test this with some coring kit, but I think it's fascinating that in that area where he got zapped and they saw that craft, the trees still don't grow properly there. How do you explain that?
Still to this day.
It ties in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think that in itself is proof that, something happened there. And the fact that they all passed lie detector tests is obviously,
right.
Compelling towards the argument as well.
Even the guy that he was arguing with, even the guy that the two of them were not very warm to each other at all. He even passed the damn thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so as far as, and again, this is another thing I don't really want to really hammer on too hard is the disclosure thing, because I agree with you. But out of all, if we're sticking under the Hollywood umbrella, as far as people's reaction, what film do you think would maybe be most accurate if aliens came down in full regalia and maybe it was kind of an ID4 situation and we weren't sure what they were going to do? How do you think people would react to that? And what film would be maybe most spot on as far as what you've read so far?
Well, from what everyone says, I don't know because I haven't seen these movies since I was a kid. It's been probably at least 25 years, 30 years since I've seen some of these films. But apparently E.T. and Close Encounters are very, quote unquote, accurate to what really happened or the true events that they're based on. That's what I've heard. Like I said, I haven't seen those movies since I was a kid. Maybe I should watch them again. Yeah. So I think it'd probably be those two because that's what everyone kind of goes back to is those specific films.
I remember when I was a kid and I saw E.T. I have no clue what age I was, but I remember crying when he was dead where you think he's dead in the river and he's like pale white. I remember bawling at that part. To this day, that's the first time I can remember crying in a movie. It was freaking E.T. I'm like, no, you're not dead, little man. So
I think
sad.
actually I was E.T. for Halloween when I was like 4 years old.
Did you have the cute little hobble that he does, right? That's incredible. What was the outfit like?
I may have the photo actually. Let me see if I have it on my. I think I found it.
You gotta find that.
Send it to you. Let me look for it. But I think it's like one of those crappy kids' Halloween costumes. So it's like a cheap plastic mask, but it's like
okay. That's incredible. I'd love to see that. Oh yeah, you'd have to walk around the neighborhood like stiff-legged, so you do the E.T. hobble. He had some swagger, man. And I know that you already saw this because I tagged you underneath the post, but it was so cool because it was one of the new members in the End of the Fray group, Buddy Coop, and his post was strictly about this, and I'm like, well, how fortuitous. I'm talking to Mike very soon about this, but his question was, as far as Tom DeLonge, is there any new information from To the Stars or the Department of Defense at all? Anything new coming out of their camp?
Well, they announced the other day the Adams Project, which is basically going to be a research project where they're going to be able to conduct their own studies and experimentation off of recovered materials.
Oh.
So they're kind of going to be doing what Bigelow is apparently doing as well. The interesting thing about this is Earth Tech International, they're partnering with them. To the Stars Academy and Earth Tech International are partnering with this together. Earth Tech International is based in Austin, Texas, and that's Hal Puthoff's place. And this is interesting because before To the Stars was announced, Tom was in Austin, and I was doing some background while he was there, and he was there to meet Hal Puthoff, who's this physicist who works at To the Stars. So it's fascinating now that they're working. Basically, I mean, it's almost like what's what I'm looking for? Not cross promotion, but it's almost like it's the same company. Not the same company, but they're it's basically under the same umbrella right now. Which kind of a lot of people are kind of making jokes about it, but whatever. I think it's kind of cool if who knows where the material is actually going to be hosted. If it's actually going to be physically at Earth Tech in Austin, or with the Earth Tech team will be in charge of it. We don't know that yet, but I think it's kind of cool, especially for me because it's close to home. It's about 2.5 hours for me, so to have something like that, kind of in my own backyard is really fascinating.
Are you waiting for the secret email, the encrypted email that you open and they invite you to come work at Earth Tech International?
Oh yeah, I wish. Apparently, those people are really hard to contact. I think in general, I mean, I used to, when I used to do cover music for the Chronicle, I've interviewed Tom DeLonge plenty of times. I met him before, and ever since he started the To the Stars thing, I've been in contact with his publicist, and it's really hard to get a word from him, or just because I think he's being really managed, and who he talks to and when he can talk.
Right.
I think when he starts promoting some of their fiction stuff that they're putting out, and some of the books, I think he'll come out and release some stuff here and there. But I think for the time being, Luis Elizondo is doing all their. He's like their kind of the face of the company right now.
Right.
And Tom's kind of in the background filming documentaries and writing albums. So that's what it seems like right now.
Why did they name it the Adams Project?
The acronym is hold on, let me pull it up. It's.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was like this long thing. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I didn't realize it was an acronym. I just thought it was like some guy that had this experience, and I didn't know what it was about. So yeah, no problem.
Here,
no worries. I wonder if they're trying to like flex muscles against Robert Bigelow. I don't know if they'll have the funds that he does, but I wonder, or do you think that they would ever really truly team up with Bigelow at all? Or do you think that's a totally like separate? No.
It's possible because Tom DeLonge and Luis Elizondo met with Blair Bigelow. I saw photos of them together on Instagram, and that wasn't something that was really like publicized, but it just took some homework to see that they've at least met. So it could be something where they're sharing the materials, or there's some cross. What's what I'm looking for? Some not cross promotion. But like some synergy between the companies,
right?
Who knows?
Some kind of sharing. I think that would be really a positive thing for both of those ventures. I that would be kind of seem like a no-brainer team up, but maybe they would like to stay separate. Well, let's jump on to some good old dimethyltryptamine, which I find, aka DMT. Have you seen the movie? Banshee Chapter? Have you watched that?
Yeah.
Pretty creepy movie. It's all about DMT and experiences, bad things that happen once people take actual true DMT. But what I found very interesting in your book, and I didn't know that they were doing this, and this is a legit place. Johns Hopkins University is actually looking for people who have seen what they call autonomous beings or entities while on the drug DMT for a new study. I'm going, oh my hell. I mean, if you read about what some of these folks go through, and I've talked to somebody that I can't really bring up his name right now. I'm not sure that he would want me to, but he has taken DMT, and he says the most terrifying thing he's ever been through. And it felt like hours and hours and hours, and he was like only really truly quote unquote high on it for maybe 10 minutes. But he says it was horrifying, terrifying. But he says, yeah, there were these things there, these beings there. So I'm wondering how that's going, finding people to go under this quote unquote high or another plane of existence and meet these terrifying beings. I don't know.
The fascinating to me, the fascinating part with that is people who have these experiences, abduction and, regressions and, through hypnosis, all this stuff comes out. All the memories are locked in your subconscious. So to me, the DMT or the chemicals your brain releases when, the people have these experiences, I mean, that could be the gateway, or that could be kind of the method of communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it could be in our consciousness,
right?
In our brain. That's where we could kind of, not absorb, but this is where we kind of, figure all this stuff out. My first book I was talking about is a guy named Dr. Robert Lanza, who was a very well-known doctor, and he started this study on biocentrism and this idea that our soul lives on, our soul is our consciousness, and it lives on after we die. And it kind of brings me back to this idea of DMT and what people see, these beings of this light or angels, and one of my theories is in our current physical state, we cannot get to these universes and these dimensions and these places as we currently are. So our consciousness can get there, but not in this vessel we have now.
Yeah, in fact, from the movie, the Banshee chapter, you know, the whole idea was it creates a receiver for your brain, or a transceiver, receiver, whichever one, maybe both, opens the doorway and then kind of lets you be open to these sorts of things. But it was very creepy the way they did it, because you would take the DMT and then within minutes you would hear, in fact, Clyde Lewis had a whole episode on number stations, which are super creepy. And there's a number station from Russia that they use in the movie, which I didn't realize it was a real number station. It's like a creepy music box, and then it's like a little girl saying just random numbers. And in the movie, you take the DMT, you hear the music box, and then you're going, oh, I'm screwed. They don't realize that at the time, but you're going, oh, well, that was a bad decision, wasn't it? And then, you know, bad things happen. But I definitely recommend that movie. It's fun, if nothing else, and interesting. And it ends up in, like, you know, bunkers in the desert and the whole thing. So, you know how that underground bunker stuff goes. Well, what about you? I mean, would you... And I know you have like a really legit job, so I'm not trying to be like, are you going to take drugs? But I mean, would you ever, you know, kind of entertain that kind of a thing if you were really like, I need some answers, you know? Would you ever entertain something like DMT?
I'm the type of person where if I'm not in control, I would not feel comfortable. I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
So that would probably scare the crap out of me. Just that feeling of not being in control.
Right.
Or losing time, or not knowing what's, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so probably not. Just because of, you know, just the simple fact that not having control of, you know, what I'm looking for, my extremities, and you know what I mean? Like everything.
Right. No. Making an ass out of yourself, basically, and not being able to do anything about it. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think I feel the same way as you, especially after hearing what my friend said and then reading some of these other experiences. I'm like, nah, I don't want to hear the music box and see the freaky beings that, you know, I'm good. Because we know that other dimensions are real. It's not so laughable now. It's a real thing. And sometimes I say that about my own experience. I'm like, I don't know what that was, except maybe a glitch in the Matrix and I saw into another dimension. I have no clue. All right. So we just mentioned kind of in jest the whole underground bases and such, and you bring up, instead of maybe looking up to the skies all the time, maybe we do need to focus underwater a little bit. And there was a case that you brought up that I was not familiar with in Siberia, Lake Baikal in 1982. Yeah. And such a cool story. Well, not great for the divers, but 7 military divers found aliens with helmets and silver suits, which the silver suits thing is so cool. It comes up a lot. Yeah. They got aggressive, and then the divers were actually like kicked out of the water at high rates of speed. And of course, then they got the bends, and some of them expired because you're not supposed to just pop up from great depths. You have to go to decompression chambers. So the aliens were a little pissy. I had never heard of this case before. I mean, I know I'm not like a UFO girl or whatever. I'm not real heavy on maybe that particular subject, but this was such an interesting story.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones just because it's, you know, these are people in the military who are, you know, diving, and it wasn't just, you know, normal quote unquote normal people or people hoaxing, and you know, someone died from it. So and it collaborates with a lot of other stories that people have, you know, when it comes to underwater UFOs and what people have seen as well. And the fact that a lot of these sightings happen near military bases, and a lot of people have seen UFOs emerge from the water. And yeah, it was just, you know, just something I was kind of investigating today is sort of about that as well, about certain water spots around the world. I mean, you could think about the Bermuda Triangle too as being a kind of hotspot for potential, you know, wormholes and interdimensional travels. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on below the surface too, which I think we should look into, because it's absolutely fascinating to me.
Maybe that could be your third book, just solely underwater stuff, right? I mean, do you think that's a case where, you know, like the Hollow Earthers, you brought those up too, it's either maybe, is it military or the aliens built it or both, or we're teaming up, or, you know, what do you think the situation is there, if in fact there is anything under some of the seafloor?
I think whatever's there, I think we're aware of it. You know, I think the people in charge of the military, our militaries, and By say "our," I mean like human.
Right, right.
I think they're definitely aware that what's going on down there for sure. The people privy to that information, yeah, definitely. And I think they're in the know that some of these areas have high traffic for a reason, and part of me believes that some of it is to keep an eye on, in terms of potentially to intervene just in case we as human beings do something stupid to harm the planet. I think that could be part of the equation.
Yeah, I wonder if they were, keeping an eye on like Trump and Kim Jong-un and being like, let's see how close your fingers get to any of those buttons because you're going to get a hell of a slap on the hand, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when I wrote a blog post about that on my website I wonder, it basically was just like a blog post asking, I wonder if UFOs sightings are going to spike because of this, because of Trump in June and especially in those areas, specific areas.
Right.
And I was just wondering if, we're going to see that, especially if they're going to be tested, if North Korea, apparently they're building new missiles as we speak, who knows? But yeah, if they were testing stuff, if, UFO sightings will come up. But then again, you also look at it, there's so much censorship there in North Korea as well. So who's going to report on these sightings?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of it like that. They are gag order central over there. Seems like a horrible place to live, to be honest with you. Like, no offense, everybody, but it does. I think as far as the whole nuclear site shutdowns and all of that, that is another really interesting side of the whole UFO phenomena and really hard to explain when you've got numerous people that have really high clearances and their job is, beyond serious. They're sitting in freaking nuclear silos with their hands on keys and near buttons and such, and they have no explanation as to how these things shut down.
Yeah, that's another thing too. It always, these are trained pilots. These are fighter pilots, and these are people who are well versed in our technology, and they're not able to explain, how things are decommissioned or depowered, and so I think there's definitely something there too that kind of shows how our tech is maybe primitive in comparison.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. When it seems like just one little zap, or maybe they don't literally zap anything, but just their presence seems to do exactly what they intended to. I don't know. Or maybe they came over to my house last week and shut my washer down. I was pretty pissed about that. Like 4 days of hand washing. I'm like, you little a-holes. A mutual friend of many of us on Facebook, you feature also in your book, and that is the awesome Chris Wolford. And I'd like you to touch on his story a little bit and just kind of recap what he was going through. I know he's been on shows before, and because I thought, I'd like to have him on my show, I actually specifically don't go and listen to that. I like to be kind of surprised, but I wanted you to kind of tell everybody what Chris saw and what he had going on, and there's the whole owl thing going on, which I want you to touch on. But yeah, if you could just kind of glance over Chris's story a little bit for everybody.
Chris's it's almost, when you read it, especially when you read it in my book, it almost seems like a dream sequence. It's very vivid. The fact that he's leaving his house and he sees, outside his grandparents' house, and he's at such a young age. It was a very obviously was a very traumatic experience, but it was also really shaped his life because he dedicates so much time to invest. I spoke to him this morning for about an hour. And he investigates this stuff all the time. And, he was, his experience as a young child, he refers to it as the others, and it was basically being escorted out of his room by them. And, seeing his house in the background, and then, an Apollo-like rocket ship, it's, like I said, when he explained his story to me, I envisioned it in my head, and it almost seemed something like you would see out of a movie. It was very, picturesque, and but it's very familiar though to people who've had similar experiences.
Yeah, the whole owl thing. What do you make of that? And I know that the movie The Fourth Kind, it was highly fictionalized, but they focused a lot on that. It was the whole, it's not an owl, outside the window or in the room, and it's the whole screen memory. And what do you make of this whole owl thing?
You bring up that screen memory idea, and Whitley Schreiber in Communion. I'm sorry, in his book.
It is communication, though.
There you go. I mean, he brings that up too. That idea that these owls are there for as a memory screen, and I mean, think about it. Owls have big eyes, right? They're nocturnal. Some of them are gray. So it's you see, there's a lot of commonalities between owls and what people describe as gray aliens. So I think there's definitely something there for sure. And I forgot who there's a book about it too, a relatively new book that I've been meaning to check.
Mike. Oh my gosh, what's his name? Mike Cleland, right?
The Messengers.
The Messengers.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like all about that, and he's had a lot of experiences with that very same thing. It's like, you think it's one thing, and then, oh, well, no, it's an owl. It's just an owl. It's fine. But maybe that's because we just cannot deal with, really processing what's in our face. So I could understand that. Okay. Oh, so Mike just sent along the photo of Halloween. Yes, you did. It's amazing. I think my mom has like that same exact jacket, and it's like the Keds and everything, shoes. That is incredible. That's so cute. You're all getting all set up, and then the mask is behind him, like settled on his neck. It's funny? I'll send you the photo when we get off the call. I still have that pumpkin from all of us had that same pumpkin when we were kids, right? Yes, I do. I do have that pumpkin. I will find that and send you the photo. That's amazing. Thanks for sending that. The good old days. All right, so what about the subject of implants? And, we've got Dr. Roger Lear, but he's gone now. So I've talked about this with Chad and Alta Dillard on an episode because she thinks she's got some stuff in her arms. And who do they have to turn to now? So what do you think about the whole subject of implants?
I mean, I think that's another thing where, people are skeptical of UFOs and all this stuff. You point them to these people who have these implants that when they're removed, the doctors have no idea what they are, and the material isn't, necessarily common. I mean, where did this come? Where did it come from? These people have these stories. Are they making this up? Did they fabricate it? Do these people with no medical background surgically implant something in their own head? So yeah, I think there's definitely something there as well. Yeah, and I think that's something that, like I said, people who are skeptical, I think that's something that can be used as proof for the argument, saying that yes, this exists.
When you brought up Whitley Strieber, doesn't he have one either in his near an ear or inside of his ear where it'll pick up like radio signals or block signals or something, and then also when they try to remove it, it would move or something?
I think so. I think that's in his first book, and I'm not sure about the radio thing. I know he had discomfort from it being in there. He would feel kind of sluggish and sometimes depressed, but I think I recall it being difficult to remove.
Yeah, like I think it would like not literally scoot away, but something like it would be bundled in, because that would just annihilate someone's sanity. I think if you watch something scoot away from you, you're like, nope, But yeah, Whitley went through a lot, but even he admits he's not even quite sure. He's like, well, I can't. I've heard him on interviews, and he does kind of go back and forth sometimes, but most of the time he's going, well, I can't call him alien. I don't know quite what the heck they were or what's going on here, but here's what I'm saying happened. Mike, what about any convincing photos or videos that you feel are legit?
I think a lot of the ones you see, kind of around military bases, whether they're alien or reverse engineer tech or, in general, I think a lot of those photos are to be taken seriously. I mean, it's so easy nowadays to doctor them. But what I was saying yesterday, before people had this technology and YouTube and, Photoshop and all these special effects, the hoax stuff, I mean, these stories have been going on for centuries before we even had, photographic evidence. And there's people, all around the world with no means of communicating against each other who share similar experiences. So there's something there.
Right. People that don't have internet, never have, never probably will. And yet their stories match up. And that goes for even Bigfoot stuff, too. So. All right. So what about the experiences people have where they're having the aliens, quote unquote aliens, come in their house, maybe on a nightly basis, and they're like, in the name of Jesus, be gone, or they'll say the Lord's Prayer or something, and then the aliens seem to react to that. Why do you think that is?
You know, it's weird. I read 2 books that are about regression hypnosis cases, and one of them is about what's her name? Betty Andreessen, which is a very popular abduction case, and she was religious, and apparently she talked to them about her religion, and some of the images she was shown when she was apparently taken to this other planet had religious imagery, like a phoenix. She saw a giant phoenix as well, which is a religious image, and not just Christianity, and also Egyptian mythology and other religions and mythologies too. So that was really fascinating. And in there, she trades or something. No, she gives them a Bible. In return, they give her a blue book. And one of the things I mentioned in my book is it's kind of a coincidence that she was given this little blue book, and we have something called Project Blue Book. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe there's a commonality there. But it's fascinating because Donna Lee is somebody I interviewed too, and she's an experiencer, her and her husband. And I had no idea she was like my neighbor. She lives like down the street, and she's friends with my mom. And they're both very, very religious people. And that's the kind of thing, my book I try to say is, there's commonalities between these things. There's some truths in some religion, possibly some truth in some of this mythology too, that you don't have to say, well, I believe in God and I'm a Christian and I can't believe in aliens. No, you shouldn't do that. You should be able to have your beliefs, but still be open-minded to the fact that, maybe what you believe isn't 100% accurate, or maybe there's some truth in it, but the names are different, or
right.
Something. I think people need to be open-minded to, like I said, their preconceived notions and their belief systems.
So as far as why they might be here, if we're assuming they're around and they're buzzing in and out and doing their thing, whatever that may be, do you think that we should fear them at all? Considering some of these horrifying stories that we have heard, or possibly what they might do to cattle, that's a whole nother subject. But, if that's them, then goodness me. I mean, haven't they had enough fun for one day? Of course, I don't think that's really going on anymore. But, yeah, should we fear them?
I don't think so. I mean, people who experience, I've never experienced from what I know, but people who experience it always say it's a very traumatic and terrifying experience. But at the same time, they never felt threatened. So I think it's definitely a shock to our system and our psyche. But even though you're having these horrible things done to you, there's always a talk. People who've been abducted. There's always a common presence. One of the beings is there to be calming, and there's also ones that look human, almost Nordic-like as well. And there's also people who push the evil alien, the demonic alien narrative, and I don't buy into that. I think it's just kind of a divisive thing, and some people kind of believe that's a national security risk and all this stuff. But I mean, I think if they wanted to be the threat, and wanted to enslave us, or some of these beliefs people have, I mean, they could at the snap of a finger. So I don't think there's a demonic or a what's the word I'm looking for, or a negative means to their methods.
I think it would suck to come across one of the mantis beings, though. I'm going to opt out of that one.
Yeah, those seem really scary. But, I was thinking about this, too. The way people describe the mantis. What if it's really not a mantis and it's just it's an operating, like it's something electronic, because it's apparently the mantis moves robotic. But what if that's how we're perceiving it, as almost like a mantis? Like
when Travis was on the table and he had all that stuff going on, and people might just think, oh, it was a mantis being, when in reality, it was ripping out your eyeballs or whatever it's doing, right? Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting thought.
People have also reported it looking like a real mantis, too, so who knows? That could be a whole nother race.
What a crappy screen memory. Like, I'd rather just remember the surgery. I don't want to see a mantis being. I'm sorry. Screw that. Praying mantises, even just out. I have one outside my door. Cool. Like, he brown one. He matches my house, but I'm not going to go pick him up. He freaks me. He's like following you like a little boxer does. You're like, dude, calm down. I'm not going to grab you. Okay. Yeah, like thoughts that the royals are reptilian, or the Obamas are reptilians and all that. I don't know what to make of that, but hey, could be. What do we know? We don't know nothing. Okay, so kind of my last question for you. It's another hypothetical. Sorry. Obviously, I love hypothetical questions.
No.
It's a pain in the ass. I mean, how curious are you? Like, what if you had to go through something like Whitley Strieber says he's gone through, and even he, like I already said, admits he's not quite sure what the heck's going on there. But are you curious enough to go through something like that might last years?
I mean, like, it's not our choice, you know?
Yeah.
And just from what I read, you know, you read these experiences and they're so vivid and they sound so cool, you know, but not to the people who experience them. It's very terrifying.
Yeah.
So as an observer and a researcher and someone who's reading it, yeah, it sounds great. Like, I remember when I was writing my first book years ago, and I was on this routine where I'd get up in the morning, I'd write, I'd go to the gym, I'd run some errands, I'd do some research, I'd write, I'd go to bed. And I do that for like 2 weeks straight. And it was on my mind so much that one night I had like a night terror. I had a terrifying dream that aliens were coming for me. And it felt so real. But I just remember I woke up and I was legit spooked. And, you know, all the stuff I was reading, you know, I was like, yeah, I had all this big talk, you know, like, oh yeah, that'd be so cool. But then just having that, like, that night terror, that dream, you know, I'm like, wow, okay, maybe this isn't something that people want to invite, you know?
You know, it's really cute that you think that was a night terror. I mean, we were talking about hypnosis. Maybe you want to go ahead and maybe it's time to make that appointment, my friend.
Maybe someday.
Yeah. No, I've said that too, because I mean, I'm just the same as you. It's like you live it, you breathe it, you're inundated. I mean, I talk about this. If I'm not talking about it with someone every day, I'm reading about it every damn day. I'm like reading 3-4 books at a time. You just don't get away from it. I'm fine with that. I love it. But I've said, I've had my one quote unquote confirmation experience. I'm not trying to make it sound religious or anything, but you know, that's what that was. That was like the big slap in the face. And you're like, holy crap, there's other stuff out here. I had no idea. And then it's a lifelong obsession. However, I've said many times, I'm like, nothing ever happens to me. Here I go to Fox Hollow Farm. I sleep in the freaking basement. All these people hear growls and this and that and see shadow people. I'm like, oh, been there, done that. But, you know, nothing happens to me. But, you know, when the lights go out and you're in bed and you're like, you know what, damn it, I'm good. I don't need you to come visit me. I'm all right. At least wait till the daytime, you know, because even though you're an adult, you know, really honestly inside, you're kind of going, nah, I'm good. It's so different when it's in your house, I would imagine. So them running in the woods was very different than if I saw them running down my stairs. I'd be like, oh, okay. Time to call somebody. Ghostbusters. Exactly. Well, Mike, where can everybody find you and your books?
Punkrockandufos.com is the website. You can there's links on there to buy the book, but you can get them on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. It's called Punk Rock and UFOs True Believers is the new one. And it's also available in digital and Kindle and those formats as well. So yeah, go out, buy the book. Just because it's interesting. I'm not going to get rich off it, but just because I think, I'm not trying to, you know, sell it too much, but I wanted to write something that was thought-provoking enough for people like us who are interested in this stuff, but also written where it's accessible enough for people who may be new to this stuff as well. So it lands right in the middle where it's engaging enough for people who are already interested in this stuff to kind of make them think, and then for new people to make them think even more. So yeah, that's my pitch.
No, I vouch for that. And I could hug you because it's not 600 pages. I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
No, and it sounds so bad, but you know, I think that basically what I'm saying is you said what you needed to say in a lovely, concise way for each chapter. And like I said, though, that's not to say that I really sat down and redid my notes and I got out my big black Sharpie and I X'd things out just because I'm like, well, you got to leave some stuff for the readers. There's a lot in this book. So it's a ton of information. So very well done.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that because I'm used to writing, you know, I used to work for a newspaper. And when you write news, you write concise. You know, you're not going for word count. You're not trying to be overblown. So writing books to me, you know, was kind of an adjustment because my first book was really short. And this one, I mean, it's about 150 pages, including the bonus content in the book. So it's relative, even though you said there's a lot of stuff in here to, you know, a lot of information, I didn't want it to be bloated. So it's written very concisely. So
no,
thank you.
There's no bloat. It is bloatless. It's perfect. No, I loved it. Thank you so much. No, like when I printed it out, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be perfect, but I was still highlighting the hell out of so much stuff. It's a great read, so I vouch for that. Well, what about any social media stuff you want to give out for people to find you?
Yeah, just at Mike Damante on Twitter. That's my Twitter. I tweet about this stuff and my stories and music stuff and politics stuff, and yeah. But yeah, I was going to say as well, like I said, thank you again for having me on. I'm a fan. I love on your website the image you have. I think it's absolutely perfect. It has you in the middle of like all these. Like I want it, like hung up one day. It's like the best like cryptozoologic like image I've ever seen. It's so rad.
Thank you. Yeah, Sam Shearon, of course, did that for me. And he would not give me... Oh, no, I take it back. Before I saw the entire image, in fact, it was the... And he hates the movie The Fourth Kind, but the image of... He purposely did this. He put the owl on top of the post, and then peeking behind the post was the alien, right? To tie in the whole, it's not an owl. And he sent me like half of a face, you know, and this and that. I'm like, I can't take it anymore. I have to see it. But he wouldn't let me see it till it's done. But... I was astonished when I got the image. I'm like, this is the most badass thing I've ever seen. Thank you. I look like so cool, which I'm not. And thank you. Yeah, the creatures and the original Sasquatch came up with. And then, you know, it's hard to see, but in the very background behind the lake and the lake monster, if you zoom in, there's a spaceship and there's a couple of gray aliens in blue suit. You know, their skin type blue suits, which is also reported with the silver suits. So... Mm-hmm. Yeah, he covered all the bases there for me, so gotta love Sam Shearon. Well,
oh yeah, you did a great job on it. Well, and I disagree. You are cool. So.
Oh well, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel pretty nerdy most days, but I'm okay with that. It's like, well, give me the nerd patch, I'll put it on. And but, no, thanks so much, Mike, and thanks again for coming on. And you know, now that you've written 2 books, obviously anything past now, you have a free pass to come on. You've got the 2 book minimum in, so you're in the club.
Awesome. Any other time, I'd love to come talk about Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster, all that stuff. Let me know.
Yeah, I don't do enough lake monster stuff. Any water cryptid I haven't done enough of, so that would be fun. I would like to do that.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks again for having me on.
All right, man.
Yeah, well, no, thank you again.
You bet. Yeah, have a wonderful day.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. example, are quite divided on this. They will say, no, we don't believe literally in reincarnation. That after your funeral, you will suddenly become somebody different, living somewhere else. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in at the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you are liberated, you will understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen put it in this way. He said, the spring does not become the summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.